Hey guys, hope you're all doing well and staying safe out there. Today we've got a bit of a two-in-one sort of video today. We're going to look at a amplifier head that I have modified. It was actually a practice amp combo that I modified into a head. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. We're also going to talk about how much difference the size of speaker and the size of guitar speaker cabinet you're using can make to the overall sound of your amplifier. So the guitar amp in question was a really old little practice amp. You all have experience with these things. It was a Phoenix PG10 guitar amplifier. So 10 watts, solid state, little tiny box, sort of practice amp thing. Unfortunately, I made a stupid mistake and didn't take any photos of it before, taking the guts out and turning it into a head. So the only photo I could find of it was this terrible photo here. But here is a photo of a similar amp so you can kind of see what it's looked like before I butchered it. You'll also see the cabinet just on its own as well as part of this video. So I took this little 10 watt practice amplifier. I took all the electronics out of the amplifier, the little combo box that it was in, and I just built a wooden box around it in a really sloppy way. I put some terrible looking paint on it and turned it into a guitar amplifier head, which now sounds a million times better than it did with its really small speaker in its really small combo format. So here is what it looks like now. I was not lying when I said it was very crappy paint and very sloppy craftsmanship. Basically, you've got the amp itself here, which you can see, and then I just built a wooden frame around it, as you can see. Very sloppily put together. There's no way to get into the electronics now, so if it goes wrong or it breaks, then that's it, which I don't really care about because it was actually, I was never going to use this amplifier anyway. But here it is now. It's got a stone look paint finish on it, because why wouldn't you want an amplifier to look like stone? And, it doesn't look great. I didn't really want it to look great. I wanted it to look, shit, I guess. But, it looks how it looks. Everything still works. The power and the cab out comes out of the top, which, is a little bit annoying, but you had to make do. But all the controls are there. All the controls are labeled. And now, going through different cabinets, it sounds pretty good. So this really wasn't a hard job at all. It was a few screws to take the electronics and the chassis that the electronics were in out of the little combo amplifier. Just undid a few screws. It was already in a box, so it just needed to be framed on the sides that were exposed. So I did that with wood, glued the wood together and around the chassis, and then just painted it. I did have to wire a input jack for the speaker out, I guess, because it was just attached straight to the speaker in the combo as they usually are. Other than the wiring of the input jack, there was no other electronic work required. It was just putting it in a different chassis. So as I said, just glued the wood around the chassis, painted it, good to go. So let's talk about why I did this. Well, I have a little 10-inch speaker cabinet that I put together by myself. It's got a Celestion 10 something. I'll put a picture of it on the screen now so you can see what speaker it is. But basically I had this cabinet. I wanted a really small, low powered amplifier head to go with it. Had this amplifier lying around, wasn't going to use it. So I thought rather than buying a small, orange Tiny Terror or one of the Hotone little amplifier heads, I thought I'd turn this into an amplifier head. I love DIY projects and it's just something different. It sounds really good now. It sounds very solid state. Doesn't sound tube at all. And the drive channel is pretty rubbish no matter what cabinet you put it through. But it's a great clean platform and it actually sounds really cool now. A big reason for it sounding a lot better is the speaker that it's going through. It's no longer going through a little 6-inch speaker, or maybe, no, it's not an 8-inch. It's definitely a 6-inch speaker in the original cabinet. It's no longer going through that now. It's going through a 10-inch speaker, and not only is it going through a bigger 10-inch speaker, it's going through a much higher quality speaker. The old speaker was not only smaller, but just a rubbish quality speaker, as is to be expected from these little amps. The better speaker, the higher quality speaker, the bigger speaker makes all the difference. So we're going to hear a sound sample through 3 different cabinet speaker formats now. We are firstly going to hear it through the original, really tiny speaker. You're going to see what the original box looked like, and you're going to hear how rubbish it sounded. We're going to do a bit on the clean channel, a bit on the dirty channel. We're going to start with that as the base and go from there to a single 10-inch speaker cabinet, my homemade one here, and then a 2x12 cabinet, which is a PV cabinet, which has a Blue Marvel on one side and a Bugera speaker in the other side, which is a greenback clone, Celestion greenback clone. So let's have a listen to the original crappy speaker now. Okay, so all sound samples will be using my PRS SE Custom 24 straight into the amplifier, and there'll be a mix of mic'd up audio as well as camera audio, so you really get a feel for it. So the small little ditty speaker, the original speaker, maybe a passable clean sound. It's kind of got its own thing that you might like and you can use. In terms of the drive sound, kind of sounded okay for rhythm stuff. You know, it has its place in recording, I guess. You couldn't gig this amp at all, let's be clear with that. But, you know, the drive sound for lead tones was rubbish, very fizzy, very boxy, very small sounding. So, you know, it has its place, it has its uses, but really it's an impractical sound that you're never going to work with long term. Right, so let's have a listen to the 10-inch speaker cabinet now. You'll notice a huge jump in the quality of sound, especially on the clean channel. Or at least hopefully you hear that. You might prefer the 6-inch or the little speaker sound, and that's fine too. But let's have a listen to that now. Okay, so now with the 10-inch speaker, all of a sudden it's sounding like a proper guitar amplifier. Still has that solid state sort of, I don't know, I guess, what's the opposite of warm when you're talking about guitar tone? Cold, I guess, but still has that solid state sort of tone to it, but sounds a lot louder now, sounds a lot fuller. It's starting to sound like a proper guitar amp that you could probably record with, maybe, probably not gig with, but practice. You could probably practice with it if you turn it up all the way. Sounding like a proper grown-up guitar amp now going through the bigger speaker. It's also driving it much better now. It sounds like it's working more efficiently because it's a very good speaker, this Celestion speaker in it. So, you know, the higher efficiency means the amp is, you know, working to its best ability through the speaker as well. All right, last but not least, we've got the 2x12 speaker cabinet. So we're going to record the Bugera vintage speaker side, which is the greenback clone, the Celestion greenback clone. But you are going to hear the 2x12 cabinet size as a whole, because even though we're only recording the one speaker, you get to hear that extra bass, extra fullness. It's going to sound really, a lot bigger, especially compared to the original speaker. Okay, so now the amp is really sounding fantastic. It's really got a great, really nice sounding clean tone. It's sounding really full, a little bit Fendery even with its, deep bass with the 2x12 cabinet. It's got a clean sound that I would be very comfortable using to record and using to, even gig with as well on certain types of gigs. The drive sound, as is common with all three different speaker cabinets, it's not a fantastic drive sound. I think it would really benefit from a drive control knob, but the amplifier only has a drive control switch. So you're kind of stuck with the gain that it gives you. But I think it definitely sounded its best through the 2x12 cabinet. It's worth noting that the amplifier gives a 8 ohm load and the 2x12 cabinet is 16 ohms. The other cabinets were 8 ohms, 2x12 was 16 ohms. So, you can factor that in as well. But sounds really good through the 2x12 cabinet. It's a sound I wouldn't be ashamed to use for recording and probably even gigging as well. Sounds really solid. It also can go very loud, especially through the 2x12 and probably even more so the 1x10 because it's the same ohms, it's got that matching ohms. But, I don't know if it could be gig worthy loud. You'd have to mic it up still. But, it's a really small portable little amplifier. If you wanted to take it gigging, why not? Mic it up, you're good to go. So there we have it. All those sounds produced from this little 10 watt piece of crap amplifier. It's been transformed with a new speaker. I would really encourage you guys, if you're comfortable with, soldering and working with basic electronics, give it a go. Buy any of the cheap secondhand crappy practice amplifiers that are out there on the market. Cash Converters, Marketplace, eBay, all those places will have a bunch of these things. Buy one, turn it into a great little guitar amplifier head. As long as you can, you're comfortable with a bit of soldering. And I guess if you want to, comfortable with a bit of cabinet making, crappy cabinet making even, you're good to go. So I would love to hear from you guys if you guys have done anything similar. I know it's a pretty popular thing to do, so I would love to see and hear about your guys' projects that you've done, turning a crappy practice amp into a great sounding amplifier head. Otherwise, let me know what you think of this project in the comments below. Let me know which one you thought sounded better. Please like and subscribe and all that stuff, and I will see you guys in the next video.